First of all, hello. So my name is Benjamin Viney. I'm one of the product experts here at Serif. And as Debbie's already said as well, but joining me today is also Katie McCabe, who's a former teacher herself and part of the experts team. And then we've got also Nick, who I think a few of you have already met, but obviously is head of sales as well. And in today's session, we're going to be going through the Affinity applications. Now, the Affinity applications, or Serif, make three different applications. They make Affinity Photo, Affinity Designer, and Affinity Publisher. And each three of these apps perform a bit of a different role, but effectively they're very, very similar to some of those Adobe apps. So, for instance, Affinity Photo is very similar to Photoshop, performs a very similar role, allows you to edit images, that sort of thing. Design is very similar to Illustrator, and obviously Publisher is very similar to InDesign. So they perform a very, very similar role. And I think in the session, we're going to look probably at the apps sort of individually by themselves. They do work very well together, but I think as well from a point of view of if I had to teach this, it's probably easier to sort of focus on them one by one. And I think we're going to do that for about 15 minutes each, and then we're going to have sort of 15 minutes at the end for questions if you've got any. So without further ado, let's get started. And I'm hoping I've got permission to share. There's only one way to find out. Can you see my screen, hopefully? Fantastic. So this is Affinity Designer. That's where we're going to start today. So this is obviously the sort of Illustrator or vectorized sort of app out of the three. And its primary function is to create sort of vector artwork. It does also do a little bit of pixel-based and raster artwork as well. But I think for what we're focusing on today, that's going to be the main focus. Oh, fantastic. Debbie's just putting that in the chat. Awesome. Just a very, very quick overview for the UI, just sort of so you know what you're looking at. The UI for all three apps is very, very similar. So on your left-hand side, you've got your series of tools. So at the minute, we've got our tools that are sort of focused on vector artwork. So we've got things like the pen and node tool. We've got things like the pencil and pen, sort of the vector brush tools, which are all sort of vector-based. So for instance, I can draw out a bit of a squiggle down here. And it creates it as a vector curved line that I can then go back in and edit, things like that, as well as your sort of standard shape tools and text tools that you might expect to find. Now, the Affinity applications have something called personas, and personas allow you to switch between workspaces or workflows as you're going along. So at the moment, as I said, obviously we're in Designer, and at the minute, the tools on the left-hand side are all vector-based. So they're all about making vector lines or vector curves or that sort of thing. But if I look up here on my top left, I've got sort of three different symbols. And these symbols allow me to flick between workspaces. So at the minute I'm in the Designer persona, as I've said, and that's the vector persona. If I click across instead to the pixel persona, it changes my tool set down this left-hand side to be pixel-based tools. So I have a paintbrush tool, which allows me to paint out different sort of pixel-based artworks. We've got a rubber, we've got a paint fill, very similar to things that you might find like in paint. Do you know what I mean? That's that sort of thing. Obviously a little bit more advanced than that, but it gives you sort of a general idea. And the idea between this is that you can basically switch between these two personas depending on the job you're doing. So if you're wanting to make vector artwork for maybe a laser cut design, for instance, you'd use the vector persona. If instead you wanted to do maybe a bit of drawing or sketching, you'd use the pixel persona. Just really quickly, sort of quite basic. On top of that, we've obviously got the context toolbar. Now, this bar changes depending on the tool you have selected. So it can be a little bit squirrely. But for instance, if I select the pen tool on the left-hand side, it will change to reflect and it will give me the pen tool options. So it's just sort of a bit adaptive as we're going across. So for instance, I could then make different adjustments to that pen tool just up here. Lastly, on the right-hand side, we have our panels, and you can obviously customize your panels however you see fit. But the ones I really want to focus on are the layers panel. And this is the layers that are currently used, for instance, in this artwork. And then the history panel down here. Now, obviously, when you're starting to learn a software or your students are starting to learn software, they're going to make a lot of mistakes. It just happens. And one of the things that I really like in Affinity is that just sort of by default, we can go back in terms of undoing history, I think about 8,000 times. It is a little dependent on your computer, but it's a really extensive system. So you can always go back if you made a mistake, which is just really quite nice. Fantastic. So I think without further ado, we'll actually get into looking at sort of doing a few designs. Sorry, it's just Nick in the chat, just double checking. Oh, sorry. Close that down. So when we were thinking about making this session, Katie was busy helping me making lots of the amazing content you're going to see today. But we sort of thought it might be fun to sort of picture an imaginary sort of task that you might set your students. And with this, we decided to come up with a bit of a theory of maybe you'd set them a task of designing a little acoustic speaker. So the idea is that you could pop a phone into it. It would obviously amplify the sound just by making a cone shape. And it's something that you'd be able to sort of create sort of going along as a bit of a project. Now, it's probably Key Stage 2, Key Stage 3. It's probably not too advanced, maybe not your sort of diplomas or A-level sort of level, but we thought it'd be fun to maybe use it as a bit of a base for this session. So Katie jumped onto the iPad, and what she's done is she's taken this sort of basic cone shape and she's sketched it out on the iPad. And the great thing about this is that I'm currently obviously on the computer, but she's done this on the iPad, and the files are exactly the same. So she saved it in her iPad, and I've opened it first time on my computer, and I can go in and I can select this as well if I wanted to make changes or add to it and going along. It's sort of a really natural sort of back and forth process that's quite nice. But what we've done from there is we've gone along and we've looked at the design that she's created, and we've started to sketch out using sort of the shape tool and the pen tool a sort of vector line that you could then send to a laser cutter, get this cut out sort of from a practicality point of view, and actually make this speaker. And in fact, if you look at the right side, these are the lines that she's created, and then she's used a tool called the Shape Builder to combine those polycurve lines together, making one smooth cut. So in fact, that's exactly what we're going to do to start with. We're going to go ahead and just create a new artboard to work on. So artboards are like pages. The only difference is they're a bit flexible. You can change the size and things like that. So I'm just going to draw out a new one there. We'll go straight for the ellipse tool, I think, and we'll just start by drawing out a few ellipses. So I think as well, we'll just click, drag, duplicate, and that's literally where I click. I'm going to hold Command on Mac, but it'll be Control on Windows, and just drag the circle to duplicate. Just nice and simple. We'll just copy this circle as well and expand it, holding Shift so it's center aligned around my circle. And again, just click, drag, duplicate to really quickly duplicate that circle. Now, instead of me spending loads of time trying to work out how to align this, in fact, let's badly align it and not hold Shift. We can select this and we can use our align tools, which is just really nice. So we'll center align and we'll center align again. And then we'll just align it again with that top circle. Sorry. Nice. Oh, just make sure my snapping is on. So it does snap too. And we'll just snap it to that top circle with my green lines. Next, we obviously need to connect these two circles together because we're wanting to make a very smooth and coherent polyline. So we're going to go to the pen tool. And I think we'll start by just literally double clicking and holding Shift to draw a nice smooth line. Now I need to be very careful with this because obviously I'm going to attempt to join these together and join these nodes together. I need to make sure that these lines do actually intersect. So we're just going to zoom in very quickly and just make sure that is a thing that happens. And if not, I can obviously edit this because this is it's a node. We can pull it about, change it, hold Shift to constrain it to increments of 45 degrees. Nice. So we've got a straight line. Next, we're going to add this sort of really nice, elegant curve that we've put in at the bottom, giving it a little bit more of design. So because I've got the node tool selected, which is this white arrow here. So the move tool is the black one, allows you to select things and move it about. The white tool is the node tool, allows you to edit nodes. What we're actually going to do is just going to click on the line around the center. And rather than creating a node, it's going to allow us just to slowly pull that in and just create a really nice, smooth curve. So not had to worry about creating a node or anything like that. It's literally just clicking on the line and dragging it in to create that curve. Now, again, because it's really important that these intersect, I'm just going to check we're okay here. But then we're going to go ahead and we're just going to copy this line using the move tool. We'll paste it and we'll just use the flip tool to flip that line round. That's the tool up here on the top here. So as next to your alignment tools, sort of your transformation tools that you'd sort of expect to have. And again, need to make sure this fits in really nicely, just intersecting these lines. Great, brilliant start. So again, we're just going to select all of this and we're just going to click, drag, duplicate. Again, you could copy and paste or power duplicate this as well. But I just like the fact that you can just click and drag and it duplicates the shape out really nicely. And then obviously we need to make a bit of a change because we need somewhere for the phone to actually physically sit. And I think Casey's done a really nice, sort of beautifully smooth arc, and it sort of rests on this half sort of semicircle here. But I think actually I'm going to go a bit more lazy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the rectangle tool. I'm going to draw out a rectangle, and I'm going to make sure on my transform panel that this is currently 45 millimeters wide. So say that actually I'm drawing this to scale. I can set a very specific scale in my transform panel to allow me to actually put this to the size of an actual iPhone. Again, let's add a bit of finesse to this. At the minute, we've got solid corners, very sharp corners. We're going to add a radius to that, so a rounded corner. So we're going to go up to the context toolbar. We'll go down to rounded. And by default, when you add a rounded corner to a shape, it's done by percentage. And I'm not personally a massive fan of that. But if you click absolute sizes, it turns it back to millimeters. So for instance, I know the radius on my phone is actually 4 millimeters. Not like I measured it this week to try this out. So we'll set it to 4 millimeters, and that should be good enough. So great. So we've got our basic shapes that, again, you could have done on the laser cut software. So laser disc 5.6, 5.3 or something like that, something basic. But what we're going to do now is something a little bit special. We're going to use the shape builder tool to combine these shapes together and to combine the paths together. So it's a really nice smooth cut if you're actually going to laser cut this. So to do that, we're going to go down to the shape builder tool on the left-hand side. This is the green tool here. I'll just zoom in very quickly. And we'll select this. We'll make a selection with this. So I'm going to hold Command on my Mac keyboard, but if you're on Windows, it's just Control. It's just the same keys. And what this is going to allow us to do is going to allow us to select areas. So that's literally what I'm going to do, and choose to either combine them or to minus them. So we do that by coming up to the context toolbar up here. And once we've made our selection, we're just going to click plus. And it's going to join that shape seamlessly together for us, creating a nice smooth path. So again, we can repeat that process over here. So we can join together this section. But instead, this time, I actually want to minus the section I have here to allow us, obviously, to cut out this section of the iPhone. So I'm going to select this place here. And instead of clicking the plus, I'm going to select minus. And therefore, it's going to make a really nice, smooth cut for me just in that middle section. Now, again, we can do... Oh, I've gone too far. Let's go do this for this last piece at the back. And just make this nice sort of smooth line. In fact, if it was a back piece, it'd probably be solid. So let's take out the holes actually as well, because we wouldn't need the holes. So we'll just plus those together. There might be a few layers here. Ooh, fingers crossed. Okay, we'll go back in instead and we'll delete them. That's why there was a few layers in here instead. I do apologize. There we go. So we've got a nice solid back panel. Now, again, it does work with Katie's more elegant design that she's got over here. So, for instance, if we, again, just make a very quick selection using the shape builder, we can make some much smaller selections here. So we can select these sort of offshoots here, this back section, and make this sort of slightly more elegant design. And again, we can flick through here, select the two circles as well, and press minus, and you get a bit more of an elegant cutout. I worry a little bit about the structural integrity of these sides, but there is only one way to find out once we've cut it, sort of thing. So maybe that's the part of the project that we use in development. But great. So basically what we could do now is we could go and we could export this. So we could go to File, and we could go to Export. And this brings up the export persona, or the export window, sorry. And the export window is exactly the same for all of the applications. So if you export in Publisher instead or in Photo, you're greeted with exactly the same window. So it's really nice because you get really familiar very quickly. And you've got loads of different options here. So you could do everything from PNG to JPEG, GIF, TIFF, PDF, PSD, SVG, EPS. It keeps going. Obviously, the list, you can see it there. Obviously, for laser cutting, you probably want something that's going to maintain the path. So I'm going to suggest either SVG, PDF, or EPS. That would be my suggestion. And obviously, you'll then spin it up in an actual laser machine as well. Yeah, but we'll go through from PDF at the moment. We're going to select a specific artboard. So you noticed earlier that I drew out an artboard, and I'm going to select artboard 1, which is the one we've done the new shape on. And I think we'll leave everything else as it is and just click export. You choose where to save it. We'll give it a version number as well, so don't overwrite anything else. And that will just really simply export. And obviously you can take the file on from there. So fantastic. Bear with me a little bit. So remember that project, we'll come back to it later. But for the moment, we're going to jump on to another little trick that we have in this designer app. So we have here some nice artwork that Katie's done, and she's drawn out lots of different breakfast items. And this artwork always makes me hungry looking at it. It looks really tasty. And these have all been created using different shapes and vector lines. And in fact, we could go in and again and still edit them if we choose to make changes. In fact, we could even delete them if we wanted to. What she's done is she's grouped all of these items into something called a symbol. And symbols are great for a number of reasons, but primarily they allow you to create a set of symbols or a set design that you can copy and paste in other places. And as soon as you edit them on the original, they'll also edit on anywhere else they've been placed. So, for instance, we have this lovely repeating pattern here. And this is essentially this symbol that's been placed 4 times, or it's a symbol group that's been placed 4 times. Sorry. Sorry about that. And as a result, if I grab the move tool, and for instance, let's go in and let's select maybe the beans, and I start to move the beans around, you can see on the other panels that we have here on this repeating pattern, it automatically moves those around. So particularly for if you were doing like a textiles project or maybe a screen printing project, it's a really nice way to create very accurate repeating patterns very, very quickly. The great thing about this as well, though, if I choose to add a new bit of artwork inside the symbol group, which we'll do now, so we use the vector pencil tool, it will then obviously adopt that into the new design as well, to make you can make updates and changes very, very easily. So we'll use the vector pencil tool. We'll use the stabilizer turned on, and this is going to stabilize the line and make a really nice smooth curve for us. And basically, we'll select the egg. We'll select that as a color. We'll do auto close as well. And then we'll just slowly draw out. I'm going to go for a bit more of a messy egg. I feel like I'm not quite the accomplished chef that Katie is. So I'll go for a bit of a messy shape here. And we'll just get that filled in there, sort of a rough egg shape. So we'll select the fill as well, and we'll apply the color that we've selected already from the egg, so the color picker earlier. So we'll turn that into that sort of nice gray. We'll add the outline now as well. So we'll go back to, you see the 2 symbols up on the top left? The sort of hollow donut is the outer line. The inner donut is the solid fill. So obviously we'll just change this outer donut. When we'll make that a really pure white. So again, we get this nice sort of like, nice sort of sticker effect, actually. That's what I'm going to go for, sticker effect. I'm going to call it that. Nice. I think what also we'll do is we'll go ahead and add a bit of yolk. So we'll make this, again, we'll steal the color from the original one. So you're going to use the color picker, sample the color, and apply it. And then we'll change that from the outside to inside. Just expand that slightly. And in fact, as well, we could probably do one more thing. I guess we could copy and paste this, shrink this down slightly, and maybe make. Maybe make this. Let's drop the stroke as well. Make this as a little bit of a shine. So we'll go in, we'll turn this to curves, go back to our node tool, and just sort of make a bit of a shine. We can then skew this slightly, resize it, and drop its opacity. So just make it a little bit sort of like a bit of shine on the egg. We'll very quickly group those together on our layers panel, and then we'll drop this into the symbol. And what that should have done is added it to our repeating pattern, and it means I can now move it around again, resize it, and so on and so forth. So nice, just a really quick way to do repeating patterns. As well, it works really well for logos and things like that as well, which is quite nice. So that's probably the quick look at Designer. What I will say, though, is if you remember this project, obviously we spoke about maybe sending this to a laser cutter. I decided to actually give it a go. So I went out and I actually laser cutted it out of, I think this is 5mm birch. That's what we went for. Just to prove that it does work on a laser cutter. You can actually go and send it and it does produce. And what I thought might be fun is then to take some of the images or take some images of it in use and then go ahead and potentially edit them in photo. So we've got a few images here that my boss, James, who's a very accomplished photographer, has taken for me. We've got a few plastic versions as well that we made, as well as a 3D printed one as well, which is something else you can do do with SVG files. So I think what we'll do is we'll open a few of these up, we'll pop them into Affinity Photo, and we'll just do a bit of a basic photo edit for these. In fact, we'll grab the sofa one as well, and we'll drop those in there. Fantastic. So this is Affinity Photo. Hopefully it looks very, very similar to Affinity Designer. The UI is very, very similar. And that's on purpose. It's so it feels a bit comfortable, and hopefully after a while you get used to it. So again, your tools are on the left-hand side. All of the tools in here are, of course, more pixel-based, because obviously it's for developing photos rather than doing vector designs. And yeah, you've got your standard layers on the right-hand side, your transform panel and the history down here on the bottom as well. So again, should look fairly comfortable and fairly familiar. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do some really basic photo enhancements and adjustments. One of the things that we love to do in Affinity is we love to do adjustments non-destructively. And what this means is that when you apply adjustments, they apply as layers rather than being baked into the photo. Now, again, when you're first learning to use the software or teaching students who maybe just want to try out loads of different things and need sort of the flexibility to go back and forth, this is a really great feature. So, for instance, we'll go ahead and let's say we want to turn this black and white. So let's go for a channel mixer. Oh, I just need to move zoom so I can get to the channel. There we go. We'll turn it to grey, and we'll drop this down, make it a little bit moody, a little bit sort of interesting. Say as well, we'll go back in and maybe we'll do a brightness and contrast adjustment. So we'll add that in as well. We'll push the brightness because we've darkened it down a bit, and we'll push the contrast. Now, the great thing about this is I actually think this looks terrible. It doesn't look great. I've lost that beautiful yellow sofa. I no longer really see the wood grain and the texture. We've probably made a mistake here, haven't we? But the great thing about it is if you can see on the right-hand side, we've added it as layers. So just over here on the layers panel, and we can turn these on or off at any point. We can decide to go back in and delete them. It's not baked in, so we can delete both of them straight out. If we decided that we liked the brightness and contrast, but we hated the channel mixer, we could go back to the channel mixer and edit it. So we could go back into RGB, we could drop the reds, for instance, pump up some of the greens and some of the yellows. It's all very, very flexible. It's designed to be very friendly, and it's designed that if you make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. Do you know what I mean? So that's something we very much like to do. And again, if you want to take it back to the original, you can just either turn them off and delete them, which is really useful. Fantastic. So that's just a quick way to show you sort of basic photo editing, something that's quite nice, quite useful to do, particularly if you're sort of following that project theme of, well, your students are going to make something, they're going to need to photograph it, they can make their photos look great, sort of thing. So we're going to move on to something maybe a little bit more complicated, and this is a great design that Katie has done again, so I'm very thankful for that. Basically, she's done this design in Designer, so this is a vector-based design that she's brought in. She's used the knife tool to slice through the text, make this really edgy glacier sort of logo. And this scenario, we were thinking about maybe it's more maybe product development and sort of product branding that maybe we're sort of thinking about, and lots of the time, obviously, you need to then apply a logo or some branding to an object. And particularly spherical objects, that's sometimes very, very difficult. So we have this water bottle here. And what Katie's done is she's applied a mesh warp to the entire label. So it warps and just sort of curves really nicely round the bottle. And if I turn it off, you can actually see it's actually just a straight image. What we've done is we've pulled that down and made it so it wraps around the bottle. But it's not just literally a dip in the pixels. What it actually is it's sort of a live thing. So if I select the logo specifically and I drag the logo around, you can see it actually maps directly to that bottle on a really nice curve and arc. Now, because the way she's done this, she's done it actually as a mesh warp group. And what this means is that you can apply that warp, that curve to any shape. So, for instance, I could actually rip this out, and we could just apply the warp to the logo. So we could go to layer, new live filter layer. We'll go to distort, and we'll do mesh warp. And this would allow me to literally just make, very similar like to what we've said earlier, just make that curve following along the curve of the water bottle and the label. And again, if I then move that around, after I've chosen to develop it, it will allow me to move that around nicely, and it will wrap around as well. But because the original way that she's done this is that she's done this to the entire label and it's a group, it actually allows us just to drop another logo straight in instead. So she's got this Splash brand logo, which is up here on the top left. And we're just going to very simply grab the move tool, going to move it over this section. On the layers panel, we're going to drop it into that label that she's made. And there you go. It's automatically wrapped in. It's wrapping around the bottle. We could do it as a sort of an edge where we've still got the blue showing if we wanted, or we could have it so it's disappearing off the edge, and it will just wrap and rotate really nicely around what is essentially a flat object. So a really nice tool, particularly in photo for that sort of thing. Cool. Sorry, Simon, I missed your earlier answer. I think Katie's got it as well. But so it currently exports as an EPS file. So you could do it as an Illustrator file effectively if you wanted to. It doesn't currently export as a DXF or a DWG. However, that is in development. So we can import DWGs and DXF files. We are currently developing a straight DXF export, and I believe it's DXF 14, 15, 16, I think, but don't quote me too hard on that. Sorry. Cool. So yeah, just a really nice way to sort of do a bit of branding and a bit of branding project. So one of the other things that we just wanted to highlight as well is obviously, I know I said in the designer sort of demo that you can do pixel-based artwork in designer, and that's very true, you can, but you can also do it in photo. And where this is actually potentially more of a pixel-based sort of workflow, this may be where you choose to do some of your sketching or some of your drawing. And again, we've got this lovely sort of fantasy house here that, again, Katie's been hard to work at drawing. She's done a lot of the content for this. I do need to thank her for that. But we can basically go through and we can add in to this drawing. So we'll select our pixel-based brush, which is just our paintbrush tool. We'll go to our brushes. We'll use the color picker. We could use the official color picker, which is on the left-hand side, or we can keep using the one on the color panel, which is what I tend to do. And again, we'll just color pick a really nice sort of creamy green maybe here. I will assign it to our brush. I will pick a brush. We've got loads of default brushes that you can choose from. You can still download and install lots of other brushes as well. I know we sell some. I don't know if Nick potentially has some that he gives as well over as part of the trial. I'm not sure. There's loads of really great brushes around. We also take Photoshop brushes as well. So if your school's already purchased some or something like that, you can install them straight into here as well. You don't lose those brushes, for instance. But I like to use the masking ones. They're sort of very soft, very subtle. So what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and we'll make sure we're on a new pixel layer as well, so we're not messing up anything actually nice. And we're just painting a bit more light down this bottom side here, just slowly sort of maybe extending this light around this door here. I think what we'll do is we'll then use the smudge brush tool. And again, we can change the brush. We could go for a particular one, but I like this soft masking one, so we'll stick with that for the moment. We'll maybe drop the flow just a little bit so it's not so aggressive, and then we can very easily just smudge this in against this layer and just sort of lighten everything up a bit. In fact, where this is such a soft brush, it's doing a really sort of like ethereal glow at the moment, and just smudge that in there. In fact, there we go. Make it a little bit more aggressive. We could also choose then to go back to our layers panel as well and maybe reduce this slightly, so it's slightly less of a harsh effect. We could choose to add a blend mode as well. These are sort of mathematical procedural blend modes. The one I like to use a lot of the time is sort of soft light or overlay. It's quite very soft and subtle. That's quite a nice sheen around here as well. And of course, there's nothing stopping you with opening this on your iPad as well. So it's exactly the same file type. You can save this down and open it on your iPad. And in fact, I have probably reason to believe that Katie probably did actually draw this originally on the iPad, I would say. But again, maybe we'll just highlight as well the sort of soft glow effects that you can do with the sort of this technique. So again, we'll sample this nice yellow here from this sort of warm glowing window. We'll select the color and apply it to the brush. I think for this one, we'll change the brush up and maybe we'll go for something a bit bigger. We'll keep with masking at the moment, a bit bigger. Maybe we'll just stamp that in over the window. That's probably a little bit too big, a little bit too oppressive. So I think what we'll do again is we'll set a different blend mode, maybe a soft light. That's quite nice. It's going to sort of softly illuminate that window a little bit. So just an example again that you do have the ability to sketch and draw and obviously digital paint within the Affinity applications. Great. I think we've probably got just enough time to squeeze in Publisher. So I think that's what we'll do. And we'll leave Photo and Designer for the moment where they are. So for Publisher, Publisher is obviously a desktop publishing software. It's very similar to InDesign. So most of the time, it's going to be used for your students probably pulling together reports or things like this. So it's going to be probably a lot of text-based work. It's going to be a lot of photos and putting them together in layouts and designs. So as you imagine, it's really good at working with text. You've got loads of different options from auto-flowing text to text styles to a really quite comprehensive spell checker, which is in pre-flight. So you can check things live, which is quite nice, word counts, everything you'd expect a text-based processing software to be able to cope and use. Oh. No, I heard a mic. Okay, no, cool. As long as nobody's got a question, that's fine. Cool. But on top of that, it's also a creative bit of software. So it also allows you to do lots of different things in terms of like photo editing. For instance, if we come up here, those adjustments that we used in photo are fully available within Publisher. You can use the curves adjustment, channel mixer, brightness and contrast, anything like that. As well as some of the other sort of vector-based artwork in terms of the pen tool as well. You can also use that in Publisher. And the idea behind this is it means that if you're pulling together a report or something, you don't have to go and open another app to be able to do the job that you want to be able to do. And it does go another step further in Publisher. I won't touch too much on it today, but as Designer has personas, Photo has personas too, and so does Publisher. But Publisher's personas work a little bit differently. So instead of having a persona for like vector artwork or pixel-based artwork, it has the Designer persona and the photo persona in the top left. And what this means is that you can switch over to the designer persona and you're greeted with a slightly stripped down version of the designer tools, as if you were to open the designer app, or the photo tools if you go to the photo persona instead. And you've got, again, pixel-based tools on the left-hand side. It's just a nice little trick. I don't quite know how that works with teaching. For me, I don't know if that confuses things to turn around and say that Publisher can do all these things in one. I don't know actually if it's better to say, oh, edit your photos in Photo, do your vector stuff in Designer, do your words in Publisher. I think they'll be down to you guys and how you want to teach that. Just as a bit of a interesting point to raise, maybe. So what we're going to show you in this document, though, is the text wrapping system. So it's quite a nice text wrapping system. It means you can wrap text around images. So we've got this massive elephant ear here. What we're going to do is we're going to simply apply a text wrap setting. So we're going to go to our text wrapping options. Oh, and let's just hope we can zoom a little bit out of the way. You probably can't see my zoom. Sorry, there we go. You've got loads of different standard options from square to edge, but I think we'll go for our standard tight option. And you can just then sort of increase or decrease the wrapping as you're going along, just increasing or decreasing the spacing. Well, when you apply a text wrap, you always apply it to the object you want the text to wrap around, not the text itself. That's the rookie mistake that lots of us made when first sort of trying this out. But the question I have is, what do you do when you normally have an image which isn't a PNG? So that elephant image is a cutout. If I move it around, obviously it's got no background, so it flows text around it really easily. So what do you do when, for instance, you have this jellyfish image, which is a solid background instead? Well, if you're in InDesign, you'd have to go back out, you'd have to cut the background, and you'd have to get it to try and flow around the edge of the jellyfish, which I don't really want to do with a pen tool, considering how complicated it is. But instead, you can use something called the text wrap outline in Publisher. So we can select the jellyfish image, which we've got here, select the wrap outline. And that's one I've done earlier, so we'll just delete that one. And it allows us to just edit this box outline and drag the text out using nodes and paths to sort of gently go around this image. We can pull this into any shape. It does use the same tools that we are using, you'd use for the pen tool. And it just allows you to sort of like pull the text around into sort of a really nice, smooth shape. So you don't have to take it out anywhere. You don't have to turn it into a PNG. You don't have to take out the background. You can add nodes along that side as well to make it smoother, make it actually slightly better go of it than I've done there. So just a nice little feature on top, makes it a little bit easier to edit or flow text around images. The next thing I want to talk about is autoflow. So autoflow is a feature in the Affinity apps that allows you to flow content into documents, very simply. And this works with everything from images to text to PDF or actual full documents. So in fact, we can probably show you actually with a new document. If I go ahead and open an A5 document, we'll make it a portrait, we'll create. Again, I don't want all these spare pages, so we'll just very quickly delete those. So we've got a single page, and we'll just draw a single text frame. So I guess that's another thing to mention. There's two types of text tools in Publisher. There's the text frame tool, and there's the artistic text tool. If you're confused because your text is only on one line, it's because you're using the artistic text tool. The frame text tool, which is like the normal text tool that you'd expect to use, is the one above. It's the T rather than the A. So we'll very quickly place a document, and in this case, I think what we're going to do is we'll place the entire Alice in Wonderland text, because why not? So we're going to simply place that into our text frame, and unsurprisingly, the entirety of Alice in Wonderland, which is about 86 pages and 13 different stories, doesn't fit into one text frame. But instead of having to go through now and make loads of text frames and rejoin them and redraw them, all I have to do is go down to this this little symbol down here, this triangle I have here, hold Shift, single click, and it will flow all of the text into new frames and new pages for me, which copies as well the layout of the original frame. So we've got that same text frame, which is that square there. So it's just really nice, quick way to flow loads of text into your document, massively good for sort of time saving. But this also works for images and, as I said, PDF documents. So I've got this document here, which is based off Around the World in 80 Days. It's got 80 different circular, I say 80, actually I think it's 56 because he only stops in 56 places. 56 different circles, which are all picture frames, and they're all waiting for content. So what I can choose to do is I can choose to place my images. So I could do Command-Shift-M, which is the shortcut for that. You could also actually just go and use the place tool, which is on the left-hand side here, or go to File, Place. We'll locate those images, and I've gone ahead and I've labeled them the correct day, and I've also labeled them where they are, but they don't actually need to do any of that. So we start in London, we end in Greenwich. We'll click Open. And what that's currently doing is that's importing all of those images. So I think it's 53 images, 50 odd images, which is about 8 gigs worth of high quality images. So it's going to take a little second to do, but just to let you know, obviously that's a lot of images to pull through and pull through well and quickly. And what that will do is it will pull through and open up the Place Images panel, which is this panel on the left-hand side. And what I could do is I could select a different image, hover it over the picture frame and single click, and it will just insert that image into whatever picture frame I so choose. But instead, if I make sure that the first image on the panel is selected, scroll to the last and hold Shift and select. So I've selected all the images, single click the first available frame, it will flow all of the images into the document for me in sequential order, which is great. So just to prove it as well, I don't actually know where you guys are based, but this is obviously Greenwich. We've got a few other images as well as it just loads in. So we've got, for instance, Shanghai Tower as well in Shanghai in the right place. I was clearly having fun with Turkmenistan because of the volcano and things like that. So as well, I've got Paris, there we go, as well for the Eiffel Tower, just to show you they're in the right place, which is quite nice. And again, you can do this with PDF documents, though I think probably the usefulness of that later is maybe lessened somewhat outside of a business context. So we won't show that in this instance. Last but not least, I think we're going to show Smart Master Pages. Now, again, this is potentially a bit of a party piece for Publisher, so it may be a little bit complicated. But I think what we'll show is if I just open this document up here, and this is a document that I just focused around dance, and it focuses around using three images. He says as he goes onto a main page, and the 3 images are yellow, orange, and blue. So really bright, really punchy, and hopefully quite easy to sort of tell apart. And what we've done here is we've created this document by creating master pages. So if I click on my master page section, which is above my pages section, just up here, you can see I've created loads of different layouts using 3 picture frames. So we have slightly different variation there. We've got a 4 picture frame version, actually, 3 picture frame version here. And what I can do is I can really quickly just apply master page A to that blank page I have here. I can then choose to fill that frame with a number of images. So let's just very quickly go through and find those dancing images. And there we go. So we've got our images here. And we can very quickly place them into the frame. So we'll make sure the yellow one's in the big frame. We'll put orange in the little one and blue on the left. There we go. And what we can do is we can grab different master pages and drag them over the page, and it will automatically shuffle the content around for us to show us how it would look if you were to apply that master. So I'm still holding my mouse, actually, so I can just flick them over. We can do this again. So there weren't enough images to fill the frame, so we've got a spare frame on the right-hand side for the 4 picture frame layout. Same sort of thing with these ones here. And it just means you can really, really quickly build up a number of different sort of designs and styles for your pages very, very quickly, which is quite nice. The other thing you can do, and I think this is potentially where this might be slightly too complicated at the moment, is you can use a layer naming convention to control where your images go. So at the moment, when I apply master page B, the blue image is, because it's on the left-hand side, is in the left-hand frame. It's very, very simple. If the yellow image was on the left-hand side, it'd be in the yellow frame instead. But say my most important image is the yellow frame, and I want the yellow one always to be in the biggest and most important frame. Doesn't matter what master page I put on the page. So to do that, I'd go to the master page, I'd go to the layer, and I'd rename the layer the same name as the image that I want to be the biggest and most impressive. So at the minute, I've actually called it just image 1. And we'll just click OK. And now if I go back to pages 4 and 5 and I apply master B, instead of the blue image being in the large A4 frame on the left, it's going to be the yellow. And that's because this image is also called image 1. So just a nice way that you can shuffle content really quickly and sort of automatically. Cool. I think I may have gone slightly over time, so I think I'm going to call it there in terms of what I'm going to show you guys. However, we will just mention 2 other things. So obviously you guys are teachers, and we don't want to abandon you without any resources. So there's a couple of things just very quickly to mention. And the first of that is our YouTube. So our YouTube is slightly ridiculously expansive, if we're honest. So there's a channel for each app, and then there's a main Affinity channel. And there's over 400 videos just on how to use tools. So, for instance, let's go to the photo YouTube page. We've got a basics panel here, and sorry, apologies if that came through and was really loud. You've got all these videos, which are just literally basic photo functions, so like placing images, transforming layers, raw development, all that sort of thing that you can view at any time. They're really short, they're really simple most of the time, and they're really to the point. That's not to say that eventually we don't get into the more complicated things. So particularly with photo, the more advanced playlist can be very complicated. But there's loads of sort of different tools, videos in there that you can just search and find out how to therefore use. So for instance, if I go into just the general videos, we could, for instance, just find out how to do sort of in painting, for instance, if we wanted to do in painting or compound masks or exporting, all that sort of thing. So it's a really great resource. It's something that myself, Katie, and James, who are the product experts, spend an awful lot of time populating and doing. So we do very thoroughly recommend taking a look at that for either yourself or your students. I think it's a really good resource. You also have the Spotlight website, which is a very similar thing, except for it's written. So lots of the times you've got 13 tips for mind-blowing skylines, for instance, or cool things we've just launched in the new app. They're sort of split into different things. So obviously the learning articles are about learning, so they're about teaching you something. The behind the scenes might be a bit about an artist for someone who actually uses the app to do a certain thing, and that sort of thing. So yeah, news and updates being another section as well. But again, there must be at least 300 posts there as well that have got all lots of different information on that sort of thing. Last but not least, as I think we sort of chatted about a little bit at the start, and Debbie mentioned as well, you are of course welcome to try these apps out. We encourage it. It's something we really like you to do. There's two different ways to do this. If you yourself just fancy a go and want to try this out, if you just head over to the normal Affinity website and download a trial, you have 30 days to use that as you may see fit. If, however, you instead go to the Affinity education site, which I'm going to get Nick to put in the chat in a moment, though I've not told him that, if that's okay, you can actually organise downloading a site license. And the site license is fairly substantial. So it allows you to use it at home. It allows the classrooms to use it at home. It allows students also to use it in and out of the classroom, as well as both on iPad and whatever machine you'd like to use. My guess is it's going to be, for the most part, it's going to be Windows, but there's also an Apple version as well, if you would so wish. Oh, I can see lots in the chat, actually, so I will just make sure I've not missed anything. Lovely. Katie's actually just put those tutorial sites in as well. SVG should be fine for most ladies. Yep. So hang on. So to prove that you could do it, so this was an exported PDF into an RDX14 to laser cut. This was an exported SVG, just to prove that both worked, spinning them off into an actual laser cutter. In terms of is an SVG okay to export them? Just in terms of going to Ryan. Great. If anyone else has got any more questions, please feel free to ask.
If you've got any questions, do hang on. If not, thank you very much for coming along. Nick and Katie, have you got anything else you want to add, or shall we let these kind people go off for their tea?
Yeah, sure. Just to reiterate, please get in touch with our email address, edusales@serif.com, for any trials or any support or any questions. And thanks for joining, and thanks Ben and Katie for helping out today, and hopefully speak to you again soon.